I still remember the smell of fresh-cut oak the first time I walked into my father's workshop. The sound of saws humming, the weight of his hand on my shoulder, the pride in his eyes when he said this place would be mine someday. I believed him. I believed that working alongside family meant security, loyalty, a future built on something real. For 5 years, I poured everything into that business. My time, my skills, my dreams. I turned down opportunities that could have changed my life because I thought I was building a legacy. But I did not know that the people who shared my blood would be the ones to teach me the hardest lesson of all. And when they came crawling back, begging for help after everything fell apart, I made a choice that shocked everyone. Before I dive into how everything fell apart, I would love to know, where are you watching from? Are you someone who has ever worked for family? Or maybe you have had to make a tough call about loyalty versus self-respect. Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you are here for real stories about standing up for yourself, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next changed everything. All right, let me take you back to where it all started. Hartley Woodworks was not just a business. It was supposed to be our family's pride. My father Frank had built it from nothing 30 years ago, starting in a cramped garage with a single table saw and a dream. By the time I came along, it had grown into a 12,000 square foot operation, producing high-end custom furniture for restaurants, hotels, and luxury homes. My older brother Derek had been working there for 10 years, handling sales and client relations. He drove a company truck, a brand new Ford F-150, and everyone knew he was being groomed to take over. When I graduated from college with a degree in business management, my father called me into his office. I can still see the way the afternoon light filtered through the dusty windows, casting shadows across the blueprints scattered on his desk. He looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Son, I built this for you and your brother. It is time you learned the trade." I felt my chest swell with emotion. This was it. This was my purpose. I was going to prove myself worthy of the Hartley name. They started me at the bottom, which I respected. I swept floors, learned to read technical drawings, operated the machinery, and inspected every joint and finish for flaws. I showed up at 6 in the morning and often did not leave until 7 at night. My father would walk past me, nod approvingly, and say, "You have got to learn from the ground up, just like I did." I never complained. I figured this was part of earning my place. After a year of proving myself on the floor, they promoted me to production supervisor. A year after that, I was managing the entire operations department. I was good at it too. I streamlined our workflows and cut production time by 30%. I developed a new inventory management system that reduced material waste by 15%. I even brought us into the digital age, launching a professional website and social media presence that brought in clients we never would have reached otherwise. Within 3 years, our revenue had doubled. But here is what nobody tells you about working for family. You sacrifice in ways you would never sacrifice for a stranger. I canceled a trip to Europe with my girlfriend Jenna because we had landed a major contract and I needed to be there to oversee it. I worked weekends and holidays without question. I turned down a job offer from Prestige Interiors, one of our biggest competitors, even though they were offering me $120,000 a year. That was nearly 3 times what my father was paying me. But I could not leave. This was family. This was supposed to be our legacy. Every Sunday we gathered at my parents' house for dinner. My mother Linda would cook her famous pot roast and we would sit around the table talking about the business, about life, about the future. My father would sometimes put his hand on my shoulder and say in front of everyone, "This boy has got a real head for business." I would catch Derek watching me from across the table, his expression unreadable. But I was too caught up in the warmth of it all to notice the chill beneath the surface. Then came the day I accidentally saw the payroll spreadsheet left open on the office computer. I was not snooping. I had been updating some vendor information and clicked the wrong tab. But there it was. Derek was making $90,000 a year plus bonuses. My mother was listed as a consultant at $3,000 a month, even though she never set foot in the workshop. And me, I was still at $45,000. No raises in 3 years. No bonuses. Nothing. I tried to rationalize it. Derek had been there longer. Maybe that justified the difference. But $90,000. For taking phone calls and playing golf with clients while I was in the trenches running the entire operation, I waited a few days trying to calm the uneasy feeling growing in my stomach. Finally, I approached my father one evening, after most of the crew had gone home. "Dad," I said carefully, I was hoping we could talk about my compensation. "I have been here 5 years now, and I have not seen a raise since year 2. He did not even look up from the invoice he was reviewing. "Times are tough, son. We need to reinvest in the business. You understand, right?" I nodded, but I did not understand. I did not understand at all. The turning point came 6 months later when we landed the contract with Grandview Hotels. It was huge. $2,400,000 for custom furnishings across 15 of their boutique locations. I was the one who pitched the proposal, spent weeks perfecting the presentation, negotiated every detail of the contract, and finally closed the deal. When the signed documents came through, my father was ecstatic. He shook my hand so hard I thought he might dislocate my shoulder. The project consumed my life for 3 months. I hired temporary workers and trained them myself. I stayed late every single night making sure every piece met our standards. I coordinated shipments, handled last-minute design changes, and personally delivered the final installations to their flagship property. The client was thrilled. They sent a glowing letter praising our craftsmanship and professionalism. To celebrate, my father organized a dinner at one of the nicest restaurants in town. The whole family was there, plus a few key employees. Toward the end of the meal, my father stood up, clinked his glass, and gave a speech about dedication and family values. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim velvet box. "Derek," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you have been the backbone of this company for over a decade. This is a small token of my appreciation." He handed him the box. Inside was a Rolex. I knew enough about watches to recognize it was worth at least $15,000. Derek grinned, held it up for everyone to see, and accepted the applause. My father clapped him on the back. Then he turned to me, extended his hand, and said, "Good job, son." That was it. A handshake. I sat there stunned, trying to keep my expression neutral, while my stomach turned to stone. Derek had made a few phone calls to the client. That was his contribution. I had spent 90 days working myself to exhaustion. Later that night, after everyone had left, I found my father in the parking lot. "Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I do not want to sound ungrateful, but I landed that deal. I worked 80-hour weeks for 3 months straight." He frowned, looking genuinely confused. "And we are proud of you. But Derek has been here longer. He has earned his place." My frustration boiled over. "What about my place? When do I earn mine?" His expression hardened. "When you stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about the family." He got into his truck and drove away, leaving me standing there under the fluorescent lights feeling like I had been slapped. A month passed. I threw myself back into work, trying to convince myself that it did not matter that I was being petty. Then came the night that shattered everything. I had stayed late to finish some paperwork, and most of the building was dark. I was about to leave when I heard voices coming from my father's office. The door was slightly ajar. I recognized my father's gravelly tone and Derek's smoother voice. I should have walked away. But something stopped me. "How long are we going to keep stringing him along?" Derek asked. There was a pause. Then my father replied, "As long as it takes. He is too valuable to lose right now." Derek laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "But what about the partnership you promised me?" My father's response was, calm matter of fact. "Do not worry. The company is going to you." "Omar, he is just an employee." Derek's voice was smug now. "Good. I was worried you would actually give him equity." My father chuckled. "He is useful, but he is not family the way you are." I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart hammering so hard, I thought they might hear it. "Not family the way you are." The words echoed in my head like a scream. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to breathe, trying to process what I had just heard. All those years. All that sacrifice. I was just useful. Just a tool they could use and discard. I left the building without making a sound. I sat in my truck in the parking lot for over an hour, staring at nothing. When I finally drove home, I could not sleep. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. 2 days later, I started digging through the financial records. I had access because I managed operations. What I found made me sick. Derek had received a $25,000 bonus from the Grandview contract. My father had taken $50,000 for himself. The company had profited $700,000 last year, and I had not seen a single cent beyond my inadequate salary. Worse, I found draft documents for estate planning. The entire business was being transferred to Derek. My name was not mentioned anywhere. I scheduled a meeting with both of them. I walked into that conference room with a folder full of printed documents. I laid them out on the table one by one while they watched in silence. "I found these," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I also heard your conversation last Thursday night." My father's face flushed deep red. "You were eavesdropping." I met his eyes without flinching. I was working late, like I always do. For this family. Derek leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Look, Omar, you are young. You do not understand how business works. Something inside me snapped. I understand perfectly. You have been using me. Essentially, free labor. My father slammed his hand on the table. Everything I have done is for this family. You think it is easy running a business. I stayed calm. Then treat me like family. Pay me what I am worth. Give me equity. He shook his head. You have not earned it yet. I almost laughed. I have worked 5 years. I doubled your revenue. What more do I need to do? Derek sneered. Maybe if you were not so entitled. I cut him off. Entitled, I turned down a 6-figure offer to stay here. My father waved his hand dismissively. And that is your choice. Nobody forced you. I stood up slowly. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. You are right. Nobody forced me. And nobody is forcing me to stay. I took my office keys and access card from my pocket and placed them on the table. I am done. Effective immediately. My father's eyes widened. You cannot just walk out. I looked at him one last time. Watch me. And by the way, that new ordering system, the one that saves you $30,000 a year, only I know the password. Good luck figuring it out. I turned and walked out of that building for the last time. I did not look back. My chest felt like it was caving in, but I also felt lighter than I had in years. The first week after I left was brutal. I crashed on my best friend Marcus's couch because I could not stand being alone in my apartment. I lay awake at night, replaying every conversation, every moment, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. Marcus kept telling me, "Man, they treated you like garbage. You deserve better." But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are two very different things. I updated my LinkedIn profile and reached out to Prestige Interiors again. The position they had offered me was already filled. For a moment I felt panic rising. What had I done? Then something shifted. I thought about everything I had learned, everything I had built. If I could do it for them, I could do it for myself. I took my savings, $30,000 I had managed to squirrel away, and registered an LLC, Hartley Custom Designs. I kept my family name, but this business would be mine. I rented a small workshop on the outskirts of town and bought second-hand equipment. I worked alone at first, taking on small custom projects, residential pieces that my father's company never bothered with. The work was hard, the hours were long, but it was different. I was building something that belonged to me. 3 months in, I got a call that changed everything. Patricia, the contact director at Grandview Hotels, the woman I had worked with on that massive contract, reached out. Omar, she said, I heard you went independent. We loved working with you. Any chance you would be interested in a project? She wanted custom furniture for their new executive suites. $120,000. I hired 2 skilled craftsmen, and we delivered flawless work. Patricia was so impressed, she recommended me to 3 other hospitality groups. Meanwhile, back at Hartley Woodworks, things were falling apart. I heard through the grapevine that the ordering system had crashed 2 weeks after I left. Derek could not fix it. Production efficiency dropped to 40%. Quality control issues started piling up. Customers were complaining. 2 of their best craftsmen quit, telling people they were disgusted by how my family had treated me. 4 months after I walked out, Grandview Hotels did not renew their annual contract. 2 other major clients canceled orders because of delays and quality issues. My father tried to hire someone to replace me. He posted the position with the skills and experience I had. The market rate was between $80,000 and $95,000 a year. I imagine he realized then what a bargain he had been getting, paying me $45,000 to do $90,000 work. But the damage was done. By month 8, the company had lost 3 major clients. Revenue had dropped 70%. My father had to lay off half the workforce. I heard he took out a second mortgage on his house to cover payroll. Derek was panicking, and from what I gathered, he was blaming our father, saying, "This is your fault, you should have paid him." My father's health started declining. High blood pressure. Stress. The business he had spent 30 years building was crumbling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. 10 months after I left, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my father's number. I stared at it for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to let it go to voicemail. But I answered, "What do you want?" My voice was cold. There was a pause, then my father's voice, smaller than I had ever heard it. "Son, I need to talk to you." I almost hung up. "I am not your son, apparently." "Remember." Another pause. "I was wrong. I know that now. Please, can we meet?" We met at a coffee shop neutral ground. When my father walked in, I barely recognized him. He had lost weight. His face was gaunt, and his eyes had a haunted look. He sat down across from me, hands wrapped around a cup he did not drink from. "I took you for granted," he said quietly. "I was wrong about everything. I did not say anything. Derek was not there." Pride, I assumed. My father continued, "Come back. We will make it right. I will give you equity, fair salary, anything you want." I looked at him for a long moment. "You are going under, are not you?" He nodded, his shoulders sagging. "Without you, we cannot survive." I leaned back. "You are right. You cannot." He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "So you will come back?" I shook my head. "No. I am not coming back as your employee." He leaned forward. Then as a partner, I let the silence stretch. "No. I will buy the company." He stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. What I explained calmly. My business had exceeded every expectation. I had brought in $500,000 in revenue in my first year. I had investors interested in backing me because they were impressed with my track record. I would buy Hartley Woodworks at fair market value, which given its current condition was significantly less than what it would have been worth a year ago. He could stay on as a senior advisor paid fairly, but Derek had to leave entirely. My father looked like I had gut-punched him. "But this is my legacy." I met his eyes without flinching. "No, Dad. It was supposed to be our legacy. You made it very clear I was not part of that. Now I am giving you a lifeline. Take it or leave it." He struggled with his pride for a week. Then he called and agreed. He had no other choice. The business was weeks away from bankruptcy. Derek was furious. He blamed our father, called him weak, and cut off contact with the entire family. The acquisition went through. I renamed the company Hartley Legacy Furnishings. I brought back the workers who had quit and gave them better pay and benefits. I implemented the systems I had developed. My father came in a few times a week as an advisor. We were cordial, professional. But the relationship we once had was gone. It could never be what it was. And honestly, I was okay with that. Winning felt strange. I had imagined that taking over the company would feel triumphant, satisfying, like justice had finally been served. But in those first few months, I mostly felt empty. I had won, but I had lost my family in the process. The anger had faded, leaving behind something quieter and sadder. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Williams, who helped me work through the complicated tangle of emotions. "You did not lose your family," she told me during one session. "You lost people who did not value you. There is a difference." Jenna, my girlfriend, had stood by me through everything. She was there during the worst nights when I questioned every decision. She was the one who reminded me that I had built something real, something that belonged to me, and that was worth more than any inheritance. A year after I left Hartley Woodworks, I proposed to her. She said yes. We started planning a future that was ours, not dictated by obligation or guilt. I also built a new kind of family at work. I treated my employees the way I wished I had been treated. Fair wages, profit sharing, respect. I created a company culture based on merit, not nepotism. Marcus, who had let me crash on his couch during my lowest point, joined the team as CFO. I mentored young workers, gave them real opportunities, and watched them grow. I built the environment I had always wanted. My relationship with my father remained distant. He still came into the office, and we talked about business. Sometimes he would try to reconnect on a personal level, starting a sentence with "son" about back then. But I would cut him off politely. "That is in the past, Frank." Calling him Frank instead of Dad was deliberate. It was a boundary. My mother, Linda, still tried to maintain a relationship. She invited me to dinner, and I went occasionally, mostly for her sake. I heard Derek had moved to another state. We had not spoken since the day I bought the company. People sometimes ask me if I have forgiven them. The answer is complicated. I have forgiven them for my own peace of mind. Holding on to anger is toxic. It eats away at you from the inside. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending it never happened. And it definitely does not mean giving people access to hurt you again. I have made peace with the fact that trust once broken that completely cannot be rebuilt. And I am okay with that. Here is what I learned through all of this. First, know your worth. Family does not give anyone the right to exploit you. Love is not measured by how much you are willing to sacrifice alone. It is measured by mutual respect. If someone truly loves you, they will value your contributions, not take them for granted. Second, actions speak louder than words. People can call you family all they want, but if their actions do not back it up, those are just empty words. Watch what people do, not what they say. Third, walking away is not weakness. It is strength. Leaving was not giving up. It was choosing myself. And that is not selfish. That is survival. Fourth, success is sweetest when it is built on your own terms. Building something from scratch taught me more than any inheritance ever could. Today, Hartley Legacy Furnishings is thriving. We brought in $2 million in revenue last year. We employ 15 people, all of whom are treated with dignity and fairness. Jenna and I got married last spring. We bought a house with a backyard where we are planning to start a garden. I have financial stability, professional fulfillment, and most importantly, peace of mind. I do not carry resentment anymore. I carry lessons. I do not know if my father will ever truly understand what he lost. Maybe he does now, seeing what I built without him. Or maybe he is still telling himself he was right, that I was the problem. It does not matter anymore. His opinion does not define my worth. Here is what I know for sure. I did not leave because I stopped loving them. I left because I started loving myself. Sometimes the hardest thing you will ever do is walk away from people who share your blood. But blood does not make you family. Loyalty, respect, and love do. And if you are in a situation where you are being taken for granted, whether it is family, a relationship, or a job, remember this. You do not owe anyone your self-respect. Not even the people who raised you. Your worth is not negotiable. And sometimes the best thing you can do is prove it by walking away. So, let me ask you, have you ever had to stand up for yourself against people you loved? Have you ever walked away from something that was hurting you, even though it was terrifying? Drop a comment below and share your story. I read every single one, and I promise you are not alone. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel if you want more real stories about finding your strength and choosing yourself. And share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you are worth fighting for. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember your value is not up for debate. Stay strong.